Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Q&A with Shridhar Kunte. I'm Nilofer Khan, your host for the evening. In these set of videos, we will be looking at questions sent to us by you that cover technique, jargon, and camera operations. So let's have a look at the first question that comes from Jayesh Malani from Gwalior. He's asking, what is histogram and how it will help me to improve my images? Do I need to check it every time I photograph?
Thank you, Jayesh, for this question. First, you need to understand what is a histogram. So, histogram is a graphical representation of the exposure which will be displayed in your camera LCD. Uh, to my knowledge and with my experience, I can say 75% of the time you can rely on the histogram which is displayed while you are playing back the images on your LCD screen. So there are three sections in the histogram, what I can define. On the left-hand side, there is a shadow areas. In the center is the mid-tone, and on the right-hand side are the highlights. So the ideal histogram would be to have the peaks in all the three zones. But that won't be the case all the time. It will depend on how you read the histogram and what is the subject, what you are shooting, whether it is a light subject or whether it is a dark subject. So obviously for the dark subject, the histogram, the peaks of the histogram will be on your left hand side, obviously. And if you try to adjust the exposure to the mid level, the dark subject will look like a gray. Vis-a-vis on the brighter images, the histogram, the peaks will be on your right hand side. So even in that case, if you try to get the exposure while using the live histogram function on your camera to concentrate at the center, your images will be underexposed. So you have to use that judiciously to get the correct exposure. I am not saying you should depend 100% on the histogram all the time, but it will give you the rough idea about your overall exposure while shooting landscape or any other, even in studio environment, outdoors, indoors. So it will give you the rough idea. And based on that histogram, you can fine tune your exposure settings to get the close exposure for what you are looking at.
Okay. The next question comes from Shari Khan, Kashmir. He's asking, I have noticed that my cell phone shows the option of shooting HDR images in settings, but I don't seem to notice much difference when I use that mode. What is the reason behind that?
See HDR, how the HDR functions, first you need to understand that, and the dynamic range of the sensor. Obviously, the dynamic range of the sensors of the cell phone cameras are much smaller than compared with the DSLRs. For HDR, so let's see how the HDR image is being formed. First of all, you need to take care that while shooting HDR image, try to avoid any moving subject in your image because it will be difficult for the camera to eliminate that when it will stitch all the 3 images or the 5 images depending on the setup in your mobile phone. So first is that. The second thing is the HDR function takes place by capturing multiple images one after the other. So for that, the camera takes the first picture at the correct exposure, which is being decided by the internal exposure meter of the camera. It will take one exposure which is under by one stop, and which is the third exposure which is over by one stop. And in the end, the final image will be addition of all the three. So in cell phones, there is a likely chance that only 3 images will be put together to get the final images. So you will not notice the difference in your normal image vis-a-vis HDR image. As you add more and more images, like 2 stops under, 1 stop under, correct exposure, plus 1 stop over, plus 2 stop over. So if you add more samples and combine those images, there is a likely chance to get more enhanced HDR effect in your final exposure. So it depends on the dynamic range of the sensor. So based on your cell phone camera sensor, the final effect will be displayed.
Okay. But isn't that the case that in a lot of cell phones you don't have the option of how many images go one stop over or one stop below? That's not really the option, right? It's just like the setting that is doing it for you.
Yeah, so this is just what I can say, feature, additional
Hmm.
feature that is given to the. So if your cell phone allows you to manually control the exposure, like under or over, I will suggest you shoot multiple images, maybe 5 images, or maybe even say 8 or 9 images by underexposing and overexposing, and combine those three, all the images uh, externally on your computer. You will have a chance of getting a better HDR effect even with the cell phone.
Okay. And in this case, one should not use HDR at night, right?
Yes, most likely. You can try. You may get an interesting effect also even at night. You can give it a try.
Alright. So the last question is by Devi Ravi Krishna from Chennai. She's asking, when I'm not using my camera for a long time, how do I store the batteries? And is there a specific place to keep them?
Yes, I can understand your difficulties in the current scenario. The advice to you would be, if you are not using the camera for like 10 days or 2 weeks, it is better to store the fully charged battery in the camera itself. Okay. If you are not using the camera for more than that time, that period, like more than 15 days, I would advise you to first charge the battery, and you, while you are buying the camera, you will get a battery cap along with it. So just attach that cap over the battery and keep it in a cool, dry place where you will not have the moisture or the heat affecting the environment. Keep that way. Other thing is, if you are your period is going more than 1 month, I will suggest you to charge the battery at least once per month to keep the battery health to its efficient level. Because one should understand that even the newer set of batteries, that is lithium ion batteries mostly, or for the pencil batteries or the AA size, it is nickel metal hydride, they tend to discharge through air also. So without connecting it to the camera, without putting it into the camera, or without putting it to the flash gun, there is a tendency to discharge the battery. The discharge level might be minimal. It won't be like a 50% discharge over a 3 months period, but there will be slight level drop of happening in the charge level. So that is how you should maintain the health of the battery, by charging it at least once in a month if you are not using it continuously for 30 days. That
Okay.
will save your battery from getting damaged, and you will have your battery health will be up and running to the maximum effect.
Okay. And now, since like the rainy season is right around the corner, in this particular case, is there something that one needs to take care of?
No, no. See, basically, for camera, yes, but for the batteries, you should always keep it in a dry environment, and where the humidity is not there. So cool and dry place is the right place where you can store your batteries.
So this is that we all have for today. Thank you, Shridhar, and thank you guys for watching the series. Um, I hope to see you next Friday.
Thank you, readers and the viewers of Better Photography. Thanks for sending us the questions. See you next Friday.
Please do not forget to tag your questions with hashtag Q&A Shridhar Kunte. when you send it to us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Thank you.